Good morning. Hope you're having a great week, great month, great year. It is early Monday morning. It's January 24th, 5:48 a.m. Central Standard Time, local time here in Oklahoma City. I'm at home if you can't tell. I just woke up an hour or two ago, and I haven't done a video in a long time. It's been about a month since I've done a video. So what I want to do in this video is just basically cover what happened since the last video, because that's primarily what I do on this channel. Is I video log my trucking journey. I started making these videos right before I went to CDL school, and I have video logged everything that I've done in trucking. Like, everything I've done in trucking is on a video. So let's continue that. But the main thing that I want to talk about is my end of year. Let me show you real quick. I do my own bookkeeping, and I track a lot of data that I don't really need to track in my bookkeeping, just so that I can do data analysis. So I'll show you my breakdown on what I made this year, or last year, 2021. And what was my revenue, what were my expenses, my taxable income. We'll talk about my amount of days that I worked. I track my work days and stuff like that. And I'm going to start tracking more stuff next year, but we'll get over to that in a minute. Let's first of all do the video logging stuff. What happened since the last video? And I'm not going to go into as much detail as I normally do, otherwise it'll take me 20 minutes to explain something really simple. So in the last video, I was trying to make a delivery down in Laredo, and the customer kept screwing up with the delivery appointments. The first place that they had me deliver to was closed on the date and time that they gave me a delivery appointment. Then they rescheduled me to go to another place as quickly as I could get there. I actually I had ordered Uber Eats. I think when I made that video, I was waiting on my Uber Eats delivery. I can't remember. I didn't go back and watch the video to see what exactly I did in that video. But what ended up happening was, before my Uber Eats got there, or within a minute or two of my Uber Eats getting there, or while my Uber Eats was there, before I had an opportunity to eat a single damn French fry, the agent called me and said that the customer wants me to deliver it to another place in town. And I'm like, well, when? And they said, as soon as you can get there. You need to get there right now. You have an appointment for 10 a.m. And it was 11 a.m. or something whenever whatever the appointment time was that they told me it was like an hour or two in the past. So I just jumped in the truck and put in my GPS, the address, and just took off as quickly as I could. I got there and I spent 3 hours going around in circles with the manager. This was in Laredo, and Spanish is the primary language down in Laredo, Texas. So almost no one in the warehouse spoke English. They had to call over a manager that spoke English, and he spoke English well enough that we could hold a conversation. I mean, he wasn't fluent in English, but we were able to hold a conversation and understand each other. And he was basically talking to me like I was an idiot, and I had no idea what was going on. And he was telling me that I just needed to drop the trailer, and he's like, he kept telling me that I didn't understand what was going on. And I was telling him that this load is not supposed to be a drop trailer. You're supposed to unload me. And if I kept asking him, is it set up as a drop trailer, or are you just assuming that's a drop trailer because I'm with Landstar, and Landstar typically drops trailers? What exactly is going on here so that I can get it fixed? It took 3 hours of going around in circles with him, the agent, and the customer before we finally got it fixed. And after we finally got it fixed, then he stopped talking to me like I was a retarded 12-year-old. I mean, I got so fucking mad at the way he was talking to me. It's hard to convey. Last time I was in trucking 20 years ago, whenever I drove for Swift, I was treated like shit by almost every customer that I interacted with. I was treated like shit at the truck stops. You know, the cashiers at the truck stops would get like offended by you going up there to buy something. They get pissed off. They'd be over there talking with somebody on a phone, or, you know, doing a crossword puzzle or something, and they would, you know, they would sigh and do shit like that whenever you would walk up to the register to buy something. You know, trucking has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. I was treated like absolute shit 20 years ago by everybody: the shippers, receivers, the companies I worked for, the truck stops. Now, the people at the truck stops kiss your ass. Like, the people at the truck stops are so incredibly nice now. It's completely different the way you're treated at truck stops. The shippers and receivers, most of them are incredibly nice to me. The companies that I've done business with are all really incredibly nice to me. That is a huge difference from 20 years ago. So to be talked to like this, like I was talked to at that warehouse, it reminded me of when I was a truck driver 20 years ago, the way that that person, the manager at that warehouse was talking to me like I was an idiot, like I was some minimum wage employee that was, you know, just didn't have any idea what I was doing, didn't understand the system, and like it made me so fucking mad. If somebody talked to me like that outside of work, I'm not sure exactly how I would react, but at work, I'm able to control myself. You know, I maintained professionalism. I was nice to him and everything, and smiled and all that good stuff. But yeah, after like 3 hours, we got it resolved. I'm still just thinking about it right now is getting me like really mad. The way that he was talking to me. Uh, so anyway, by the time we got it resolved, it was so late in the day that the dock was completely full, and he didn't have anywhere to unload me. So he told me I would have to come back the next day. So I came back Tuesday. He told me to get there as early as I could so that I could be sure to get there before the dock gets full. He said they open up at 8 a.m. So I got there at 8 a.m. and I had no issues getting unloaded on Tuesday. So then after I got unloaded, excuse me, I went back to the truck stop and went to sleep because I was still on a nighttime schedule. So I'd been up all night, and then I got unloaded, and then I went back to the truck stop and went to sleep. Woke up at 10 p.m. Tuesday night and laid in bed for about an hour trying to think about what to do. And I debated whether to try to get a load. I'd already made the decision I was going home. I was trying to decide whether to wait around for a load to go from Laredo to Oklahoma City or just deadhead. It's 600 miles from Laredo to Oklahoma City, about a 9-hour drive in a truck. And I made the decision to just deadhead home because all of the freight going from Laredo to Oklahoma City was really cheap. It wasn't worth my time. It would have taken me an extra 2 to 3 days or more. Some of the loads didn't pick up for a couple of days. Some of them didn't deliver until Monday. So, and not hardly any of the loads went directly to Oklahoma City. Most of them were going, you know, somewhere near Oklahoma City. So yeah, I just made the decision to deadhead home, and I was home by 9 a.m. Wednesday morning, and I've been here ever since. There's a lot of reasons why I've taken as much time off as I have. Number one reason is just because I wanted to. I was having fun. I was enjoying myself on my time off, which is not very common for me. I've been really like, I don't know how to describe it, like burnout or in a funk. I just haven't been enjoying my time off for like a year. I haven't found anything that I've like had a lot of fun doing. I've found things to pass the time with, but I don't know if you've ever had, like, most of us have some kind of hobby that we like to do in our free time. You know, you like to watch sports, or you like to, you know, do carpentry or fish or play video games, whatever it is. Most of us, whenever we have an opportunity to do our hobby that we enjoy, we get really excited and we love it. Me, I've had so much free time in the last couple of years that I've gotten burnt out on my hobby, which is gaming. And now I can't find a game that I enjoy playing, and I usually just end up sitting here browsing through games trying to find a game that looks interesting. And I'll play games that I played in the past, and just to pass the time with. But I mainly just sit here browsing the internet, watching Netflix, and trying to find a game to play. But this time that I've been home, I've like had a blast playing a game. Like I've had so much fun, more fun than I've had in a year or two playing a game. So that was the main reason I stayed home for as long as I did. Other reasons are weather. I've been waiting on a bunch of shipments. I had several shipments that things that I ordered that have been delayed, like new glasses. I ordered some new glasses. They should be here in the next couple of days. Um, I have several things that I ordered, and almost everything has arrived. There's one thing that's not going to arrive by the time I get here. Those belts. I've talked about it in previous videos. I have issues with the APU, and it has two belts. One belt runs just the generator, and it's a really proprietary belt. It costs $80. And then the other side is a belt that operates the fan, the water pump, and the alternator. They all run off the same belt. And I've just been buying cheap little $8 belts and putting it on there, and the damn things keep like stretching and breaking. And I have to replace the damn belt like every 3 months. And it's a pain in the ass to replace that belt. So I ordered some more expensive belts that are, instead of $8 a piece, they're more like $35 a piece. And they are not supposed to, like, the delivery date on them keeps changing, and it keeps getting delayed further and further. Let me check Amazon real quick and see what the current ETA is. Got to scroll through all of my orders. I got so many. Yeah, they're coming over from China. They don't even show as shipped yet. They're probably on a container ship waiting to be offloaded right now. Um, so who knows when they're going to arrive. It may be a month from now. But luckily, that's the only thing that has not been delivered yet. So, one last thing before we start getting into the end of year review is I have booked a load to leave the house on. Friday, the 21st, I booked a load that picks up on the 29th going to San Bernardino, California. It's the exact same load I left the house on last time. Pays the exact same amount of money. So it picks up at FedEx here in Oklahoma City. The FedEx place in Oklahoma City is right across the street. It's like a half a mile away from where I parked the truck. And I'm delivering it to a FedEx in San Bernardino that's really easy to get in and out of. It's a pretty awesome place. So I'm really excited about that load. It's a good paying load for that particular lane. The amount of money it pays is $4,414 on the full rate, the line haul. So what it pays is $3,900 line haul and $514 fuel surcharge. What I make after the percentage cuts is $3,049. So a little over $3,000 is what I make. The listed mileage on the freight bill is 1,285 miles. So if I remember correctly, what the load pays on the full rate per mile is $344 per mile. What I'm making is $237 per mile. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that load doesn't pay that great. But Oklahoma City is an absolutely horrible freight market. And loads going into a premium market like Southern California generally pay less than other loads. So to get $344 a mile going to Southern California from Oklahoma City, that particular lane, that is paying incredibly well. Normally, loads going from Oklahoma City to Southern California, those things are like $2 a mile. So this thing is paying 1.5, 2 times more than normal loads going from Oklahoma City to Southern California. So it's paying really, really well. So I'm happy with it. And hopefully I get a nice big load coming out of San Bernardino. I always like going over to Southern California because it's pretty much guaranteed you're going to make a lot of money coming out of there. We'll look at the load board here in a minute because it's early in the morning, and they should be posting loads on the board right now. So we'll look at my end of year numbers. I need to blow my nose real quick. Let me pause this. All right, I'm back. So we'll look at my end of year numbers, and then we'll go peek at the load board and see if there's anything good coming out of San Bernardino. Get an idea of what the market is like over there. There's so many things going on right now that are affecting the freight market, or that will potentially affect the freight market, and fuel prices and everything else. Like, we live in very interesting times. Like, there's so much crap going on right now. The major news headline right now is Ukraine, but there are so many things going on that are going to have a huge impact on the supply chain and us. There's a bunch of issues with rail lines. Possibly strikes going to happen with rail lines. Rail lines might divert out of the Los Angeles area because of crime in that area and stuff like that. There's just so much stuff going on. I should make another video just talking about that, all that crap. But let's talk about my numbers. So let's go over here. And you can see all of my numbers. So what it is A through G. This is all of my bookkeeping. These are all of my expenses and my revenue. So this is my revenue column. And then I classify the revenue as to what it is. Trip pay, miscellaneous pay, stuff like that, interest, because I get paid interest on my escrow account. And then I have my expenses over here, and then I classify the expenses as to what they are. And this stuff over here, this is me doing, adding stuff up and compiling the information into something usable. Some type of usable information. So we'll talk about all of this. So before we start talking about all of this, let me just first say, like, hopefully you can read it. If it's blurry, I release the videos immediately. I just publish them as they upload. It can take all day long for YouTube to process the high definition version. I am recording this in 1920 by 1080 resolution. So if you can't view this in 1920 by 1080 resolution, then either your ISP, your phone provider, your cellular provider is limiting your resolution, or YouTube hasn't processed the HD version of the video yet. So I hope you can read the stuff here. But what is my gross? How much did I make last year? I made $96,276.71. So I made $96,000 gross last year. Before we talk any more about that, let me explain something. Because I didn't make very much as an owner-operator. And I'll try to put that in a context for people who don't understand, like, what's a normal amount that an owner-operator makes and stuff like that. I'll talk about that in a second. But let me explain something. I am not a normal truck driver. I'm not a normal owner-operator. Most people that get into trucking because they're desperate financially. And they're trying to make as much money as they can to get out of their desperate situation. Most people that become owner-operators are not well off financially. They're barely scraping by whenever they become an owner-operator. They finally saved up enough money that they can put a down payment on a truck, and then they become an owner-operator. So most people that are truck drivers or owner-operators are in a bad financial situation, and they work their ass off so that they can pay all of their bills because they're heavily in debt financing the truck, and they didn't have a whole lot of money to start with, and they're trying to improve their situation. They're trying to get into a position where they can buy a house, They're trying to buy a better car. They're trying to do this. They're trying to do that. I'm not in that situation. Before I got into trucking, I had a good paying job and I already have all the stuff that I want. I have a nice house. I have a nice car. I did have a nice motorcycle, but I've gotten too damn fat to ride the damn thing, so I sold it. Um, there's I already have all that stuff. I got into trucking for different reasons than what most people get into trucking for. Most people get into trucking to get into a better financial situation than what they were in. I got into trucking to improve my lifestyle so that I could have more control over my work life balance. I wanted to be in a situation where if I felt like working, I could go out and work. If I felt like taking time off, I could take time off. If I could choose what I wanted to do and when I did it. So if I want to go over to Florida, I can go to Florida. If I want to go to Wisconsin, I go to Wisconsin. If I want to go to Southern California, I can go to Southern California. I can do what I want when I want, and that's that level of control. And then the earning potential that I have allows me a lot of freedom and flexibility to take a month off if I want to. I could take 6 months off right now if I wanted to. It would not set me back. Well, it would set me back. I would have to let's not kid ourselves. I do have bills, but I could take 6 months off right now. It would eat into my nest egg. I would not want to do that, but I could if I wanted to. So what I'm doing in trucking is I'm trying to make enough money to pay my bills and set a little back to keep the business afloat. I have a business nest egg and I always want to be adding to that nest egg because, you have unexpected expenses as a business owner. So I'm not just running a break-even business. You always have to make extra. But I'm not trying to get out here and, make crazy amounts of money. That's not what my goal is. So I hope that explains why I don't really make a lot of money. It's because I'm not trying to. That's not what my goals are in trucking. So let's talk about my numbers. $96,000 a year gross. What is normal for an owner operator? That's a debate topic. You're going to have lots of different answers. You're going to have, people that are going to be like, oh, if you make less than $500,000 a year as an owner operator, you're a worthless piece of shit. You don't know what you're doing. You have the know-it-alls and, the people that are just, you have dumbasses at all ends of the spectrum. You have dumbasses that make very little money that think it's normal to make very little money. You have dumbasses that make very little money that lie about how much money they make and they claim to make a lot more than they do. And then you have dumbasses that make a lot of money and they think that's completely normal and that anybody else that can't do that is an idiot. But people that are making that kind of money are probably in some weird one-off situation where that is not easily reproducible. So you're going to get a different answer from everybody on what is normal in trucking. And your gross revenue it's kind of good to know your gross revenue. I mean, it's really good to know your gross revenue, but somebody telling you how much they make gross doesn't really give you a good idea of how much they make, because there are drivers out there that are making $250,000 a year gross that after all of their expenses, they're only making like 50 grand a year. And then there are people like me that are making $100,000 a year gross, and after all of my expenses, I'm making 50 grand a year. So that person that's making $250,000 a year gross, they're working their ass off. They're having almost no time off. They're working year round. They're just working their ass off. And I'm working 3 months out of the year, taking 9 months a year off, and the two of us at the end of the year are making the exact same amount of money after expenses. So, yes, it's good to know what your gross is, but whenever you're talking about a small business or any kind of business, you have to look at the big picture. You have to look at all the numbers to really get an idea of how well the business is doing. So let's talk about my numbers. Now, when I say I take a lot of time off, let me show you how much time I take off. So this is my per diem tracking page, and I'm going to add to this next year. I'm going to start tracking more information. I started doing it toward the end of this year. I'm going to start tracking the mileage on my logs, on my hours of service logs. Every day it has my mileage for that day, and I'm going to start tracking that next year on my per diem page. But anyway, so we had 365 days last year. These are the total days. I track that on the potential days. There's I'm not going to explain every little thing that I do on this spreadsheet, but just a second here. I got to blow my nose again. So out of 365 days last year, how many days was I away from home? I was away from home for 164.75. We'll say 165 days. Those are my per diem days. Anytime I'm away from home working, I can mark that as a per diem day. It doesn't matter if I'm taking a week off at the truck stop. If I'm sitting at the truck stop waiting on a load to be posted, I can count that as a per diem day. If I'm down at Disneyland taking vacation, I can't count that as a per diem day. So I was away from home 165 days out of the year last year. So 182.5 would be half the year. So a little less than half the year, almost 6 months. Well, it would probably be closer to 5 months. Just a second here. 45%. Yeah, it's really close to half the year. About 5.5 months, I was away from the house. So when I'm away from the house, what percentage of time? So 45% of the time, I'm away from home. And when I'm away from home out over the road, how often am I working? 56% of the time. So I'm away from home about half the year. And when I'm away from home out over the road, I work about half the time I'm out over the road. The other half the time I take off. So what does that mean? That means on average, I will do a load and then I'll take that amount of time off. So if I did a load that I drove for 4 days on, I will usually take 4 days off after I deliver that load. Then I'll do another load. And if that load takes 3 days, then I'll take 3 days off. That's normally what I do out over the road. What does all that equate to? That equates to me working 25% of the year or 91.75 days. Last year, I worked 92 days out of the year, which is 3 months. The year before that, I was an owner-operator for only half the year, so I had to use averages and extrapolate data out and stuff like that. And the numbers I came up with last year was that I work approximately 90 days out of the year. Basically, all the data that I have this year, that I have a full year of data on, matches up exactly with what I did last year. It's identical to the data I extrapolated out based on, averages and stuff, only working half the year. So I'm very consistent with the number of days that I work and how much I work and how much I make. Because the amount of money that I made last year, if I worked a full year last year and I just extrapolated the data out, then it would be identical to what I made this year. So I'm consistent. So let's go back and talk about my numbers. So $96,000 gross. I had $50,000 in expenses. What are my expenses? My expenses are fuel costs. I don't have a truck payment. So fuel cost, insurance, medical exams, my internet services for the truck, communication services like the ELD, things like that. If I buy a network router for the truck, I write that off. Refrigerator for the truck, I write that off. If I buy a new mattress, bedding material, anything that I buy for the truck, I write off. tools, grease, maintenance services, things like that. Pay $1,500 for them to go in and make an adjustment on the truck. I write that off. So those are all of my expenses, $50,000 in expenses. What is per diem? That goes back over to sheet number 2 where I track my per diem days, 164.75 days. Every day that I'm away from home that I can mark as a per diem day is $52.80 that I can write off in taxes. So that totals out to be $8,700 in write-offs for per diem. So that comes down to my taxable income of $37,257. So whenever I file my taxes for the IRS and I look to see what tax bracket I'm in, I make $37,000 of taxable income, and that's how I determine my tax bracket. That puts me in the 12% tax bracket. So if you make under 41,775 or something like that, we'll just say 47,000 or 42,000. So it's like $11,000, between $11,000 and $42,000 is a 12% tax bracket. Once you make over 42, between 42 and whatever the next number is, 90,000 or something like that, that puts you in a 22% tax bracket. So I was able to get under into the 12% tax bracket. And that's about all I want to say on the tax bracket. Let's talk about what this means. Like, if you're an employee, all you really understand is like an employee salary. So is my taxable income right there, is that the equivalent of an employee salary? No, it's not even remotely close to an employee salary. How much did I make last year? If I were to try to give somebody an idea of how much I made last year as far as like an employee salary goes, if I were to try to give what I made last year as an equivalent of an employee salary, how much did I make last year? Well, let's go over here to let me explain how I would come up with that number. So we would take this taxable income, and number one, we would add this per diem back into it because I didn't spend that money. That's just a tax write-off. So I've already done that, and this $46,000 is basically my revenue minus my expenses, and we're not subtracting per diem, just revenue minus expenses comes out to $46,000, $45,955.81. Well, that's getting me closer to what an employee salary would be. So the next thing we need to do to get what my employee salary would be is we need to add in all of my tax write-offs that an employee can't write off. So fuel surcharge and all that stuff, those are still going to, come out of my expenses. But we go over here to sheet 3, and this is a breakdown where it adds up all my various expenses. My communications charges, this is ELD and stuff like that. That would have to stay in. So what I would do, to get my employee expenses is I would add in things that an employee would still spend money on, but they can't write it off on their taxes. They can't itemize. So an employee, I still had the same amount of expenses for parking as an employee as I do as an owner-operator. The difference is I can write that off as an owner-operator. So I would have to add in this $1,630 for parking, add that back in to my income. Scale, no, I don't pay for that crap as an employee, so I don't put that in there. Tolls, I don't pay for that as an employee. Mileage tax I don't pay for. Medical exams, no, I wouldn't pay for that as an employee. Maintenance I wouldn't pay for. Internet I would pay for. So I'd have to add this $2,000 of all my internet expenses back in. Insurance I don't pay for as an employee. Fuel tax I don't pay for as an employee. Fuel I don't pay for as an employee. All of the fees, some of these fees I would pay for as an employee, but most of these fees are associated with being an owner-operator, so no, I wouldn't add that back in. We already talked about communication. This is ELD. Equipment. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the equipment that I would pay for as an employee. A lot of it, though, I would not be paying for as an employee. There are things in my equipment that are owner operator specific. So I would say about $3,000 of the equipment, 3,500. We'll go with 3,500 of the equipment. We'll split it in half. Half of it is owner operator expenses. Half of it is the same expenses I would have as an employee. So 3,500 there, and then add in all the other stuff. So we had the parking. 3,500 plus the internet stuff. We'll round that up to 2,000. 5,500, and then the parking another 1,500. So $7,000. So then we come back over here to sheet 1. 46,000 plus 7,000 puts us at 53,000. So if I were going to explain, break this down to somebody and give them a number that they could quantify, something that they could have some context with in their brain, I made the equivalent of about $53,000 last year if I were an employee. I made about 53 grand last year. People can argue, this is one of the things that people talk about all the time about becoming an owner operator, the extra taxes that you pay. You have to pay all of your Social Security and Medicare taxes. Big fucking whoop. It means so little. Like it's negligible because of all my tax write-offs, I can drop my entire tax bracket down from a 22% tax bracket. Like if I made 53,000, no, I would still be in the 12% if I made 53,000 because the standard deduction is $13,000. So that would put me at $40,000 taxable income. So if I were an employee and I made $53,000 and I took the standard deduction, my taxable income would be $40,000, and that doesn't include 401k or insurance or anything like that. That does not count towards your taxable income. So yeah, I would be in the same tax bracket whether I was an employee or an owner operator or an independent contractor in this particular scenario. But realistically, if I were an employee, I would most likely have made a lot more money because I would have been working a lot more. But all I'm doing is I'm trying to convey the amount of money that I made into like the equivalent of being an employee. And the additional taxes that I pay on Social Security and Medicare is negligible. It's not a big deal because all of my tax write-offs offset that. I'm not going to end up paying a ton of money in taxes. It's not going to be crazy money in taxes. So yeah, my taxable income is $37,000, but I made about $53,000 comparing it to an employee. And that was on working 3 months out of the year, taking 9 months off. So I think that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I am going to try. I've been trying, and I'm going to continue trying to work a little bit more and make a little bit more money than I have been. I want to add to my nest egg and build it up. I'm trying to work toward being in a position to run under my own authority. And running under my own authority has a lot of startup costs, really big, like insurance down payments and stuff like that. And I'm taking on a lot more risk running under my own authority. So I do plan on working more than normal. So like how much more am I looking to work? I don't have an exact number on it. I'm working 92 days out of the year right now on average for the last year and a half that I've been an owner operator. I'm very consistent with working about 90 days out of the year. I would be really happy if that 90 days per year turned into 120 days per year. If I just worked 4 months out of the year instead of 3 months out of the year, that would be a big improvement for me because we can come over here and look. And what is my revenue per day and my revenue per week? I have all of this broken down. Let's see here. What's the difference between this section and this section on revenue per day and revenue per week? This one up here is based on every day of the year. And this section right here is just based on my work days. So if I worked an extra 30 days, then I would make an extra $30,000 approximately. So I make about $1,000 per day revenue on average when I'm working. $1,000 per day. And my average income per day is $406. So after all of my expenses, I average about $406 per day. Now these numbers, how to explain this without taking 3 hours? I have a lot of expenses that I have every week, regardless of whether I drive or not. So a lot of my expenses are static. Some of my expenses are dynamic or variable. Like my fuel cost is variable. It's dependent on how much I'm driving or how much I'm consuming fuel. But my insurance is exactly the same whether I'm driving or not. So my expenses on a weekly basis should, my revenue versus my expenses, the ratio should improve the more that I work. The less that I work, the worse the ratio is, if that makes sense. So if I work an extra month, then this ratio of like roughly, so I'm making $1,000 a day and 400 of that is income. Am I after expenses? That ratio should increase. So right now it's about 40%. It could improve to 50% where my income is $500 a day versus $1,000 in revenue. The more that I work throughout the year, the better that ratio should get. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. But what it boils down to is I don't make a lot of money as an owner-operator. I take an incredible amount of time off. And because I have really low expenses, I'm able to make pretty good money only working about 3 months out of the year. And I would like to increase the amount that I do work per year and put more money aside. I would really like to get out there and find a really awesome paying dedicated run that I can just do consistently. And I think that I would have a lot less downtime because a lot of my downtime is me being really picky with loads. And I'll sit around for 3 or 4 days in between loads waiting on, a really good load. And whenever I get home, I'll sit here waiting on a really good load to be posted to leave the house on. So a lot of my time off is waiting on good loads. So if I found a really amazing dedicated run or some type of consistent run, I could really make a lot of money in a year. A lot of money in a year. So, but I still enjoy my time off, so I'm happy with doing what I'm doing right now. But one other thing about this past year is that when I started being an owner-operator, I leased to USA Truck. I was leased to them for half a year in 2020. And then in 2021, I was leased to them for the first 3 or 4 months of 2021. So this year is not a full year with Landstar. This is like about 8 months with Landstar, 4 months with USA Truck. But I did make pretty good money while I was with USA Truck. So I wouldn't expect these numbers to change very much next year with a full year of Landstar. Because I made comparable money at USA Truck as what I did at Landstar. Because the last few months I was with USA Truck, I made the best money I'd ever made at USA Truck. I was just making a crazy good money at USA Truck. So Yeah, that's my end of year, 96 grand, 37,000 taxable income. And these are all my work days, and I don't even know what. No, that's just an extra. I don't have anything on that. This is just a breakdown of all my expenses and stuff. There's all kinds of things I can do with the data. That's the reason I put all the data in the way that I do in my bookkeeping, is so that I can do data analysis on stuff. But yeah, that's what's going on with me. Now let me pause this and I'll pull up the load board and we'll take a look at the load board for a minute. All right, we got the load board up. Um, I am not using my normal search filters. I'm showing a lot of loads on here that I normally wouldn't haul, because I'm really picky about the weights that I haul. I don't like touching hazmat, things like that. So I one thing that I didn't change was the region. I still have it like region restricted really bad. It's basically only showing loads that are going across the southern US, because I don't want loads up in the north because it's winter. I fly south for the winter. So well, let's look at this for a minute, and then I'll go back and I'll add in all of the there will be tons and tons and tons of loads going into the northeast if I enable northeast loads. The majority of the loads coming out of Southern California are going up into the damn northeast. Which, oh man, I could do a whole other video on the other stuff that I keep wanting to talk about. China is doing all kinds of stuff in Central America to add in alternate methods to get freight over to the East Coast, to the Gulf and to the East Coast. I forget all the things China is doing right now, but they're in agreements with a couple of different countries to basically build like a second canal, because the Panama Canal is not big enough to accommodate the huge container ships that we have. So China is, I think that they're based on what I saw, they've made agreements to create a second canal that will accommodate the big container ships. They're also creating some kind of rail uh, uh, transport facility thing where ships can come up to the Pacific side of Central America and offload their stuff onto rail, and it just takes it across to the Gulf of Mexico and loads it onto another ship, so they can move cargo across on rail. I mean, I think there's like three different things that China has going on. Once these things get up and going, which these are massive, massive projects that could probably take 10 years or more to complete. Once these things get up and going, it could completely change the freight network within the United States. The West Coast may not be a very good freight hub anymore, because a lot of the freight might just go all the way around the country and unload in New York, or unload in Florida, or unload in Texas. It could completely change the dynamics of the freight industry if ships start coming through Central America and offloading on the East Coast or the Gulf of Mexico, or going all the way up and around and coming in through the Great Lakes and unloading in Chicago or something like that. But yeah, China has things in the works to do that. And it's probably not going to happen for, I don't know, China might throw a tremendous amount of money and labor at it, and they could maybe get these things done in 5 years, but I really don't expect to see any of these things completed for a minimum of 10 years. But that kind of stuff could completely change the landscape in trucking and the freight industry and the supply chain. But anyway, let's get back to looking at these loads. What do we got going on here? Okay, this very first load is posted by an agency that's a really shady agency. I will probably never haul a load for this agency. I've never hauled a load for this agency, but the way that they list loads, I don't want to work with them. They lie like crazy on their loads. So basically, this load right here is listed as a load that has one extra stop. It's 4,000 miles and it's paying 16 grand. It looks like a pretty good load. But once you dig into the load, what it is it's two loads that this company has bundled together. This agent has bundled together, and they're listing it as a single good load. What these shitty agencies do is they'll package really crappy loads together and get the total revenue up. And there's a lot of dumbasses that just look at total revenue and they're like, oh, that's an amazing load. Look how much money that thing pays. And they'll go out there and haul these loads. When if you were to break down what you could make if you just hauled like single loads and you did your own trip planning and you didn't let this agent package loads for you, you can make a lot more money than the crap that these agents are putting together. Because usually what they're doing is they're packaging a really, really bad load that's going into a good market. And then you have this amazing load coming out of that good market that is mainly what you're making money off of, is that one load. And the rest of the loads they packaged in are just really crap loads. So that's what they've done on this load. It's not a very good load, which is why it's been sitting there. All the loads that you see sitting on the load board at night and on the weekend, that's the stuff that nobody wanted. That's the leftover crap. So we're looking at the leftover crap right now. New loads are being posted right now, but the majority of these loads we're looking at are the leftover crap that nobody wanted. So what all we got here? This Carson, California to Polk City, Florida. These are pretty good loads. $4.66 a mile going to Florida. I don't know where Polk City is at. How far south into Florida is that? Oh, here's the reason it looks like a decent load. 72 hours drop trailer at the shipper. Driver must accept macro point tracking. So it sounds like there is some app you probably have to install on your phone for tracking purposes. Not a huge deal. But they get 3 days to load the trailer. So you drop the trailer off at the shipper for 3 days, and then you come back once it's loaded. So yeah, that's the reason this load's still sitting here. Let me see where Polk. Looks it's in between Tampa and Orlando in that industrial park, the Davenport, Florida, Lakeland, Florida area, Auburndale. Yeah, I've delivered several loads into this area right here, this spot in between Orlando and Tampa. Really hard to find parking in that area. There's a tremendous amount of trucks in that area, and there are, a few truck stops there, but man, there's just way more trucks than truck stops. That's the only area I've ever had the cops run me out of a parking spot. That's it. I was with USA Truck at the time, and I drove around for about an hour looking for a spot to park, and I finally just parked at the end of a row. It's one of the only times I've ever creatively parked in a marked parking spot. And a couple hours later, the fucking cops are out there with a bullhorn telling me to move. So, yeah, it sucked. So yeah, that's if that load did not have the extra 3 days on it, it would be a good load. It's sitting on the load board right now because it has 3 extra days on it to get loaded. And there are several agents that have that load posted. So that load needs to have a little bit more money tacked onto it to cover the amount of lost revenue for setting for 3 days. So LA to Miami, $3.81 to haul a 45,000 pound hazmat load cross country. That is terrible. That is a horrible load. Oh my goodness. All right, San Diego to Polk City, Florida. This one's paying $1,000 less, 50 cents a mile less than the other load we were looking at that had the extra 3 days on it. But this one's probably paying less because it doesn't have the extra 3 days on it. Yeah, there's nothing in the comments about extra 3 days on this load. But that load, for the 11,000, I would be tempted to go to Polk City. But for 10,000, I'm not really tempted. You could probably find a load for $8,000 that's going halfway across the country. Why in the hell would you go all the way across the country for 10? What do we got here? Oh, okay. Here's one going to Memphis, Tennessee. It's a little over halfway across the country, 3/4 the way across the country, paying $8,000, $447 a mile, 19,000 pounds, but it's hazmat. Let's see if we can't find like let me just skim through here and see if we can't find a really good load that jumps out to me. Usually what I'm looking for is something that's like over $5 a mile. I would love to find one that's like $6 or $7 a mile that's only going halfway across the country. Something that's paying like $9,000 and it's going to Dallas. Let's see if we can't find something like that. Katy, Texas. That's Houston. Riverside, California to Katy, Texas. It's paying almost $5 a mile, 35,000 pounds of medical supplies, paying $7,000. That's a decent load. It's not great. It's decent. Moreno Valley to Duncan, Oklahoma, $485 a mile for 42,000 pounds of general goods. Carson to Kansas City, 35,000 pounds of hazmat, paying $474 a mile. So, like I said, this is the leftover crap that nobody wanted. These are pretty much all of these are good loads. They're all good loads. They're all solid loads. Like, I'm nitpicking these loads and I'm talking about and all that stuff. These are good loads. If you were to take somebody, like, take me when I was with USA Truck and I was, let's say I'm sitting over in San Bernardino and I'm driving for USA Truck and all of these loads popped up on USA Truck's load board, I would be so incredibly ecstatic. Like this would be amazing. But Landstar's load board has lots of really, really good loads. And I'm always trying to get like the top loads. I'm trying to get the loads that are not very common, the outlier loads, the ones that are like really amazing. So all these loads are really solid loads. They're really good loads. Most people would be happy to haul pretty much any of these loads. But I think I can do better when I leave San Bernardino. I think I can find something better than most of this stuff. So just for, shits and giggles, let's check out the entire country and see like what kind of awesome loads there are around the country. Let me pause this. All right. So the first search we're doing is from anywhere to anywhere, and we're just looking for high revenue loads. I set the minimum rate per mile at $3.50 per mile, which is kind of low. And I set it to only show loads that are over $8,000. So I only want to see the big paying loads, the month-long dedicated hauling loads for a band or something. So let's just see what we got here. And then we'll go over and I'm going to bump up the rate per mile and see what kind of like awesome paying rate per mile loads there are across the entire country. So what do we got here? We got New Jersey to... Now, a lot of these loads are probably going to be the agent put in an extra zero. So let's see what this first one is for $80,000, paying $32 a mile. Looks like a load of crap. Oh, and another thing. These are 53-foot dry van loads. There should not be any team loads, any custom critical, any over-dimensional freight, nothing like that. There should be nothing specialized. Everything that's showing up should be something that I can haul. So let's see what this load is. Yeah, there's nothing in the notes to indicate why in the hell this thing's listed as $80,000. When was this posted? January 24th at 7:23 a.m. So I think that's Eastern time zone is what this time listing right here is. So this load was just posted about a half hour ago, and I think that they put in an extra zero on this load. So this is an error. All right, let's see what this next one is. See if it's another typo. All right, so I will give you 200 for the fuel, 200 loading, 200 unloading, no touch. I have this lane for every day, Monday to Friday, for the next 3 months. $32,400 per month times 3 months is $97,200. So basically, we went over my numbers a minute ago. I work 90 days out of the year, and I make $96,000. So this is exactly the same amount of money that I make over a 90-day period, but this is a dedicated run. Now, it's not listed as a direct contract freight or anything, so this person is just saying that they have access to it. So I would have to break down what this load is. So it's 407 miles. I have this lane for every day, Monday to Friday, for the next 3 months. So let's try to figure out like how much this pays. So he has listed 407 miles. Gresham, Oregon to Caldwell, Idaho. So, Man, they don't give a whole lot of information so that you can like kind of break this down. But if it is, let me think here. So let's say it's round trips. So it would be 814 miles per trip every day, Monday through Friday. But you can't do that load in a single day. I don't know. I'm not going to try and break that down. There's not enough. There's too much I would have to guess at. So I'm not going to try to break that down. It sounds decent. It could be a fairly decent load. But this is Oregon to Idaho. Let's look at a map. This is probably some insane mountain driving. Yeah, Portland to Boise is basically what it is. Is this the 84 or the 82? 84. Yeah, the 84. This is the 82 right here, isn't it? Yeah, the 82 goes up to Seattle. Yeah, that's a hell of a dedicated run. If I lived in that area, I would be very interested in that load. I would call and inquire about some details. Culpeper, Virginia to Billings, Montana. 8 stops, 20 grand, 40,000 pounds of auto parts. It's 6,000 miles. They have you driving all over the damn country. Another fairly low rate per mile. Tacoma, Washington to Anchorage, Alaska. Yeah, that's a trip that I want to do in the winter is Anchorage, Alaska. There's a whole bunch of Tacoma to Anchorage. San Bernardino to Bloomfield, Connecticut. $20,000. It's 4,000 miles. Alaska. Ontario to Ocala. This is that VBR agency that packages multiple loads together and lists them as a single load. These next 3 loads are that same agency. So let's not even bother looking at their crap. We know what it is. Biggs, California to Fredericksburg, Pennsylvania. No. Patterson, California to Pompano Beach, Florida. Why didn't this show up in my results a minute ago? Did this just get posted? Nope. Why was this not in my results a minute ago? Is it because of the weight? No, the weight's 10,000. Where is Patterson, California? Oh, I remember where Patterson's at. I pulled a load out of Patterson. I took a load from Patterson to Jacksonville. The reason it wasn't in my results earlier is because it's so far up north. It's out of the 150-mile range. I should have known where Patterson's at. I hauled a load from Patterson to Jacksonville a month or two ago. Yeah, I was like, why in the hell isn't a $12,000 load showing up in my results? So in case I haven't said it enough, all of the prices that you see here, these are the full rates of the load. What do I mean by full rate? The full rate is everything together. So it's the line haul, it's the fuel surcharge, it's all the accessorial pay, it's everything. This is the total amount the load pays. So to figure out how much you make on this load, you have to break down what the how much of that is fuel surcharge, how much of it is accessorial pay and stuff like that. Because I get 65% of pretty much everything except fuel surcharge. Most of the accessorial pay that you get at Landstar, Landstar still takes their 35% cut from it. Layover pay, all that crap. Landstar still takes a 35% cut. So when an agent acts like they're doing you a favor by giving you, they're breaking out some pay into layover or, whatever, extra stop pay, stuff like that. Landstar still takes their 35% cut, so it's pointless for an agent to break that money out. So look at the contract and see what you actually get 100% of to see if the agent's doing you any favors. So there's not any like really big awesome contract stuff. You know what? Let me lower the rate per mile a little bit. All right, I got rid of the rate per mile and I just told it to show me all the loads over 15 grand. Because a lot of these really big paying loads that go for a whole month or two, they don't pay very well on the rate per mile. So let's see what we got going on here. Nothing looks interesting. Let me do an agency search real quick. Yeah, it's just too early in the morning. I did an agency search for MEP, which I'm pretty sure is the agency that does tours for shows and stuff like that. Like you sign a contract with them to do, like a month long concert tour or whatever tour. They had a whole bunch of loads for the Christmas holidays listed. Uh, you know, I don't really want to do that kind of crap, but I'm sure a lot of people would love to do those kind of things. Me personally, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. But yeah, it's just too early in the morning. The total load count is not very high on the load board. So there's just not a lot of very good loads posted on the board. And it is Monday morning. So all of the loads have been picked through since Friday afternoon. So you had Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Sunday night. And now they're just starting to replenish the load board. The last time that a lot of loads were posted on the board was Friday afternoon. So yeah, it's probably the worst time to be looking at the load board is really early Monday morning before they start posting loads Monday. So yeah, we're just bad time to look at the load board. But there's still a lot of amazing freight on the board. Freight volumes still look like they're really high. And I was looking at a report from Landstar that had information in it from DAT and all kinds of other places. And it was basically saying that freight rates have just continued increasing. Like, it's crazy. We're in a really, like, big time bull market for freight. Now, you have to put that into context. A lot of that has to do with inflation. So as far as like our bottom line, how much we're making at the end of the day, yeah, we're getting increased rates, but we have increased fuel cost, increased DEF cost, increased equipment cost, increased labor rates, increased part prices. All of our expenses have gone up substantially. And are the increased freight rates offsetting that? Are we break even right now? Are we making less at the end of the day than we were with lower freight rates and lower expenses a year ago? I don't know. I haven't crunched the numbers on that, but yeah, the freight rates are going up, and they're going up quite a bit. This is one of the reasons that I personally like when I start trying to explain why I became an owner operator. There are so many reasons why I quit my old job and became an owner operator. One of the reasons is because of inflation. My old job, my salary was very stagnant. My salary did not keep up with inflation, even with annual raises. And I was a top performing employee almost every year. So almost every year that I worked at the job that I worked at, I got one of the biggest raises available every single year. But those raises did not keep up with inflation. So every year, my standard of living decreased a little bit. I fell closer and closer to the poverty line every single year. All my expenses kept going up, and my pay increases kept me down. Like, the expenses were outpacing my salary. Well, I decided to get into trucking because as an owner operator getting paid a percentage of the load, my pay will fluctuate with things like inflation. Like, I get an almost immediate return on inflation. So as prices go up, the amount of money I make goes up almost instantly. My pay does not lag behind inflation like a normal employee does. If there is a massive amount of inflation that happens in our economy, employee salaries will lag behind inflation by a considerable amount. It takes companies a long time to adjust to inflation and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why over time the middle class has been getting closer and closer to the poverty level, because we've been having massive inflation, but salaries haven't been keeping up with inflation. They've been rising, but they haven't been keeping up with inflation. So that is a big reason why I left the corporate world where I worked at and moved into trucking, becoming an owner operator, is because inflation was becoming a huge problem. It's been a huge problem for several years, for decades, and I decided to get over into a place where my income could keep up with inflation. So, yeah, go back to where we were at. So, the yeah, the freight rates are increasing, but I wouldn't go out and buy a new house or anything because of it, because our expenses are, we have inflation across the board on everything. The prices of everything: food, clothing, fuel, housing, cars, labor costs, everything is increasing. So I doubt that we're seeing much real increase in what we're making. Our increased freight rates are probably just keeping us up with inflation or close to it. So, yeah, one thing that was kind of odd was that January, February, and March are typically slow periods in freight. And in the document that I was looking at, they were projecting that January was still going to see an increase in freight rates, a big increase in freight rates over December. So, like, all of the supply chain issues and all of the backups and everything are affecting so many things in freight. And one of the things that they're doing is that there isn't really a slowdown that's happening. The slow periods that we normally have don't appear to be happening anymore. The January, February, and March slow period, it does not appear to be happening, at least according to the data that they're throwing around and the projections that they're making. So normally, I try to run very little in January and February and March because of the winter weather and because of decreased freight volumes. But they're saying that the freight is going to continue to be there. So, yeah, I'm just going to keep running like normal. But anyway, this video is getting really long. Let me wrap this up. And what else am I going to be doing today? I don't know. I don't know when my next video will be. It'll probably be whenever I go and pick up the load and I get back out over the road. I don't like making videos when I'm at home. I like to, just relax and do my home thing. But I prefer to make videos when I'm driving. It gives me something to do when I'm driving. So I'll probably make a rambling video while I'm driving from Oklahoma City to San Bernardino. But anyway, I hope you had a great year. This is my yearly wrap-up video. So I hope that, you had a lot of time off and enjoyed it like I did, or you made a lot of money because you worked your ass off, or whatever it is that you wanted to accomplish last year. I hope you accomplished it. And if you didn't get it done last year, then I hope it happens for you this year. So anyway, hope everybody had a great year, and I hope you have a great year in 2022 as well. So thanks for watching. Have a good one. Bye.